Hey everybody, what's up? Chad Wesley Smith here for Juggernaut Training Systems and Juggernaut AI, joined by 6-time national champion, world champion powerlifter, Marisa Inda. How you doing today?
Good.
And we are gonna be bringing you 5 tips to improve your squat. So some technique tips, some cues, and some drills to reinforce them to help you put some more pounds or kilos, whatever your preference is, on the bar. So first up, we want to talk about tightening your setup. Great squat starts with a great setup. The tighter upper back position you can create, the more stability you're going to have, the less likely you're going to be to round over in the squat. So creating a tight setup is going to be a 3-step process. First, we want to put your hands as close as your shoulder mobility will allow. So for Marisa, that means her hands are almost on the smooth. Her index finger is almost on the center smooth of the bar. For me, right now, my shoulder mobility, that means my hands are out here with 2 fingers around the bar and 2 fingers under the bar. So as close as your shoulder mobility will allow. Of course, improving your shoulder mobility a little bit to get a little bit closer hand position is going to be better. Like when I was competing in powerlifting, I used to, and was a little bit more supple than I am now. I was thumb covering the rings, but wherever you are now, if you can move it in, even an inch is going to enhance the tightness of your setup. So step 1 is getting the close hand position. Step 2 is going to be pulling everything towards the center of your body. So as Marisa ducks under, she's going to pinch her shoulder blades together. She's trying to squeeze my fingers in between her shoulder blades. And then she's going to pull her elbows together behind her back, like right above her butt. Once those first 2 steps are achieved, close hands squeezing everything towards the center, then she's going to try and push her elbows forward a little bit. But if you're doing a great job of number 1 and number 2, then step number 3 is going to be almost imperceptible. So as you can see, even in my wide hands setup, same principles are still applying. This is as close as I can put my hands for my shoulder mobility, but I'm still squeezing my upper back together and pulling my elbows together towards the center of my body. All right, so a couple quick tips for improving your shoulder mobility to improve that position. First 2 are very simple. Just spending more time in that tight upper back position. So, ducking under the bar and just kind of sitting there for 20, 30 seconds, letting your body start to accommodate to that. As you're going through a training session, it might not be smart to just start with the empty bar, in your lowest bar position right away. So starting with the empty bar, maybe in a high bar position, and then every set that you do, just gradually moving the bar a little bit lower and lower as you go. It's gonna be a simple way to not, stress your elbows, your shoulders too much. Give your body some time to accommodate. Then 2 more specific shoulder mobility drills that you can do. First one is called shoulder slides. So she's gonna go for hands straight out in front, and then just pulling your elbows back, kind of like you're getting set into the squat position. So just feeling your scapula move there, and then extending the hands straight out in front, just pulling them back into position. And then the next one is we call a reverse snow angel. So you're going from hands straight out in front, and then as she rotates her hands around, finishing with her hands right above her butt, back and forth. And just focusing on getting the scaps moving, making sure that we're getting into that tight upper back position through moving your shoulder blades, not just jamming everything down at the shoulder joint and the elbow joint. That's where you're gonna start to get more pain. So take 30 seconds to do that before you squat or in between sets. All right, so tip number 2 is gonna be about breathing and bracing. So for a long time, a lot of the cueing towards breathing and bracing in the squat was all about big air into your belly or push your abs out into your belt. And both of those cues, if all I do is breathe here in my belly or push my abs forward, what's gonna tend to happen is you're gonna push yourself into kind of excessive extension through the low back. So what we like to cue is to push your obliques out. So when you do that, you're gonna brace in front, you're gonna create some pressure in the back, and in the side. So we're gonna create 360 degrees of pressure for circumferential expansion. So as you set up, rather than just thinking about pushing the stomach forward and abs into your belt that way, I'm thinking about taking my air, pulling it down and pushing it out into my obliques. Which is still creating pressure in the front, some pressure in the back, but also that pressure in the side, and allowing me to brace a bit more neutral position. A bit of a change too that I've had in my thinking about breathing and bracing for the squat, particularly after hernia surgery and herniated disc surgery, is really trying to make a more active flex of my abs, tightening of the ab muscles, not flexion of the ab muscles, rather than relying entirely on the air and pushing out against the belt. So if you have a hard time feeling that braced position and the pressure in your obliques, this 90-90 breathing is kind of a staple in our warm-up exercises. So Marissa's trying to flatten her low back against the ground, and then as she takes her air in, expanding in all directions, increasing the pressure between her low back and the ground. She's taking a big breath in through her nose and then powerful exhale through the mouth. And if you're having a hard time feeling it, Marissa's to put her hands on her obliques to give some tactile feedback. So as she breathes in, she can feel the pressure increasing against her hands through her obliques. So doing 10, 15 breaths like this at the start of the warm-up, on off days, in between your first couple sets of squat warm-ups. Very simple exercise, going to improve low back health, going to improve breathing and bracing. This, coming back from my herniated disc in 2013, was kind of the foundation of me relearning how to brace and taking my squat from 905 up to 970, and it's really improving the technique and positions. So our third tip to improve your squat is going to be squatting with your knees and hips together. For a long time, there's a lot of cueing towards sitting back in the squat or keeping your weight on your heel. But if you're squatting like that, overly sitting back, overly weight on the heels, it's going to be bad balance through the foot. It's going to be not as stable, and you're not going to be able to use all the musculature possible in the squat. Particularly, the more you sit back, the less you're going to be able to involve your quads as a knee extensor, and it's going to rely more on your hamstrings and hips, and they're just not as well suited to that task. So what we want to see is, instead of a hips first squat, is a simultaneous unlocking of the knees and hips together. So we're trying to squat down rather than squatting back. So you're going to have full foot pressure here, a more balanced squat, a more athletic squat, a more consistent squat that allows you to use quads, hamstrings, glutes, low back, all in a synergistic effort. So our next tip to improve your squat is going to be about improved big toe pressure. And if you've seen meet videos or been around me coaching before, you probably hear me yelling big toe, and it's like, what does that mean? So kind of going along with our last tip about squatting with knees and hips together, this big toe pressure is going to help emphasize that. It's combating the over cueing of sitting back or weight on the heels. And it's going to be particularly important as your first move out of the hole to keep pressure in the front of the foot. So even if you're starting the lift well with knees and hips together and full foot pressure, it's not uncommon that as a lifter hits the hole, that their first move is for their hips to shift back, their weight to shift back, and the hips rise relatively early compared to the shoulders. But if we can keep emphasizing that big toe pressure, now the hips and shoulders can move together. The knee is going to stay forward a little bit longer out of the hole, and we're going to be able to most effectively use our quads in the part of the lift where they are best suited to move the weight. Again, this is an exercise where there's not a ton of special tips or drills to do to practice it. You kind of just need to think about it during the lighter sets, maybe overemphasize it a little bit during lighter sets. Goblet squats might be a slightly easier way to feel it, or even an exercise like a front foot elevated split squat, where you are really emphasizing pushing your knee forward, feeling the weight in the front of your foot, and then just being able to recreate that sensation when you take it to the barbell squat. So our fifth and final tip to improve your squat is going to be pushing your back into the bar. So this was a cue given to me by the GOAT, the legend, Ed Cohen. He talked about creating equal pressure with my upper back into the bar as I was with my feet into the floor. So I had a problem a lot of times because I had very strong quads relative to my low back, that my first move in the squat, my hips would shift back and I'd kind of get stuck right about here without the low back strength to finish the lift. So as that first move out of the hole, he was telling me to actively push my upper back into the bar. That was going to keep my chest up a little bit more, my hips underneath me a little bit better, allow me to push with my very strong quads throughout the lift. So Marissa will show us how that looks here. So if you feel like you fall into that same category of relatively stronger legs compared to your back, and it's happening where your first move is shifting the hips backwards before you can finish the lift. Yes, big toe pressure, our last tip, is going to be important to you, but also this idea of actively pushing your upper back into the bar, using your back strength to its fullest potential. That's going to further help create a synergistic effort between quads, hamstrings, glutes, and low back. So you can keep the bar moving in a straight line, keep it over your midfoot, and have as effective a squat as possible. All right, so there are 5 tips to improve your squat, some of our favorite cues, some concepts for you to think about technique-wise, and some drills to help you get in better positions. So hopefully you enjoyed those. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you want to get the smartest program for you, join over 10,000 people who are training with the Juggernaut AI app, getting a totally customized program that grows and adapts to your feedback. You can visit the link down below in the description or juggernautai.app and have a 2-week free trial.